Welcome to Smart Talk. This is a weekly series produced by the Beyond Belief Sobriety podcast, which is a podcast that explores topics of interest to people who are seeking or who have found a secular path to recovery from addictions and problem behaviors of all kinds. We post our episodes in both an audio and video format on a regular basis, and you can learn more about us at our website, beyondbeliefsobriety.com. This series that you're watching now is called Smart Talk, and here we focus specifically on the people and tools of smart recovery. My name is John Sheldon, and I've been the host of the Beyond Belief Sobriety podcast since it started in September of 2015. I'm also a person in long term recovery with over 30 years of sobriety, and I'm a certified peer support specialist in the state of Missouri. And I did pass the training to become a certified facilitator for SMART. Haven't done much with that. But I have learned enough to speak with Arthur, my co-host here, and Arthur is the he has a long history with SMART, and he currently serves as the national outreach liaison. He is a facilitator, and he knows more about SMART, its tools, and the culture and organization of SMART than anybody I've ever met. So he's absolutely perfect for this. Today, Arthur will help us understand the ABC tool and how it's used to address the 4 points of SMART, or at least some of those points. I think actually this tool covers pretty much all of them. Those 4 points being building and maintaining motivation, coping with urges, managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and living a balanced life. But before we get into that, I'd like to check in with Arthur and take a look at what we did last week and get his thoughts on that. Arthur, how you doing?
I'm good. How about you, John? It's good to be here.
Oh, I'm doing okay. I can't believe that it's Christmas next week. Are you ready for that?
I was ready for it since Hanukkah.
Oh, really? Oh, God, I'm sorry. Jesus Christ. Okay. Big fail on my part. I should say, how are the holidays?
Yeah, let's just. I think that's it's always the safest way to encompass it all.
I know. Why did I learn this? We
The,
and at work we don't have Christmas parties. We have holiday parties. It's the holidays because not
right,
everybody celebrates.
right. Let's be inclusive.
I
Let's not.
know.
Yeah, let's not segregate other religions and other people out.
Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry. Okay,
You see,
that's
there
me.
you go again.
I know. I know.
It's
And I don't
really
even
it's
believe
really
I'm an atheist, but I just give gifts and I get gifts. That's all I do.
well, it's really funny because because I was just going to make a comment that now that I heard you're an atheist, and the first name you invoke is Jesus, I have to wonder.
I know. But I'm not. I'm using it like. I'm not. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
As the people can see, we have fun on this show,
Oh,
and
we
we can
do.
laugh and we can have fun. So
We do. We do. I can certainly laugh at myself, and that's one of the good things about life nowadays is I don't have to take myself too seriously. In fact, the tool we're going to talk about is kind of like that, isn't it? It's like kind of understanding that we don't have to be victims about the way that we think about whatever's going on in the world and what we do and how we react to it. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting into that. But before we do, why don't we take a look at the feedback we got from the episode I just posted last night? So it just posted last night, so we don't have a lot of feedback yet. So as we get more feedback, we can talk about it. But this is the episode with Joe Gerstein, where he went through the hierarchy of values.
mhm.
And we talked a little bit about the history of Smart and his role in it, and learned more about him. It was pretty interesting episode. But there's Kelly posted because she is the person who originally asked for us to talk about these tools, the hierarchy of values and ABC. And she wrote something really nice about you and Joe. And I don't know if you realize this, but she actually has attended some of your online meetings. Kelly has, and she wrote that, and I'm just going to quote from her directly, that she's inspired by your humanity, empathy, and spirit of charity as you dedicate so much of your precious time to help people such as myself. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, very very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice reward when you know that you might be helping somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but in smart recovery though, we look at it that the way I look at it personally is as a facilitator and as a group, what we can do and what we want to do is plant seeds
Mm,
because it's a self-empowering group. We want the people to be able to water those seeds, fertilize them, so to speak, and let the flower grow and let that recovery grow within them and let them figure out that what's the best route and the best way for them to attain their goals and what they really want to accomplish.
yeah.
So
It's
as
her
much as
doing the work.
yeah, it's exactly that. As much as and I've heard, thank you for doing what you do, and I say I didn't do it, you did,
Yeah.
and because I always take it right back to them because they're the ones doing the work. And you just
Yeah.
said it very succinctly. That's exactly right.
Yeah. That's nice. I like that a lot. It's very nice. So tell me, is there anything what are your thoughts about as you look back on that episode we did with Joe? Is there anything that you think that we should expand on from last week? Something that we missed, something we got wrong? Um,
We didn't. No, no. Look, when you introduce me and you say you've never met somebody that knows more about smart than me. Well, there's a lot of people that know a lot more about smart
well,
than
I
me.
don't know them though.
Yeah, and Joe happens to be one of the keys. Who,
Yeah.
when you're the guy that sat down and was the co-creator of it,
Mhm.
and this came out of and the first meeting was in the basement at Harvard. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Um, and you had a guy on there that is extremely knowledgeable and really, really knows the stuff. Uh, I must say that if I have anybody that I look at as a basic mentor, now,
Mhm.
do we always agree on everything? No.
Mhm.
But do we have the same bottom line? Yeah.
Mhm.
We may have a different way of getting there.
Right.
Okay. And that's the beauty of smart recovery. But,
Right.
but if, as I said, if I have to say that I have a mentor, it would be
Mhm.
Joe
Mhm.
Gerstein, because but if the two of us are on the show together again, you would hear him say just like I would say, I have learned a lot from Joe, and he would say he's learned a few things from me too,
That's cool.
and it's only because of the way we approach things. We see it, so we all hear things sometimes a little bit differently,
Mhm.
um, and um, and sometimes our reaction to that is going to be a little bit different.
Mhm.
But we all go to that, but we want to go to the same place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really liked hearing the story that he told about how he came up with that idea, the hierarchy of values, with the guy that was coming to meetings and just didn't have any motivation to change. The group was getting antsy because this guy was like not didn't they didn't think he was serious. And Joe thought, man, I got to do something. And so he had that Maslow's hierarchy of needs in mind, and he thought,
Right,
why don't I think about values and have this guy think about it. And so he listed his things that they're important. His wife, he likes to travel and all this stuff, his family, and then he said, "What about alcohol?" And the guy said, "No, that's not a problem." A week later, the guy comes back after having some time to think about it, and he says, "Yeah, I canceled my trip to Italy because I'm drinking, and it's affecting all of my relationships. So, alcohol has been a value that's been in conflict with all my other values." Right?
okay, so well, but here's what he said about Italy. Okay, well, I'm going to correct it just a
All
little bit.
right.
What he said was, "What good is a trip to Italy if I can't drink wine?
Exactly. And that's why he said, "I'm not going to go to Italy. I can't drink."
I
Right?
can't. Right? If I'm not drinking, what good is a trip to Italy?
Right.
What good
So
is
it's like,
having fettuccine alfredo without some red wine?" So
yeah, so there you go. I mean, there you go. There's his drinking is trumping that value of loving those
exactly
trips.
of going on a trip.
And that's what it kind of hit him that, yeah, okay, you're right, and so yeah, it's a really it's a neat tool. And in fact, Kelly says she's working on her hierarchy of values now, and it's something that she's going to use to kind of help her with her
Now,
motivation. So,
there's a way to now. There's of course there's two ways because one of the things I did in a show that we had done much earlier in the year
mm,
when we talked about the hierarchy of values, and I said in a group setting. Now, this is a great way to approach somebody the way it was described, the way we're talking about it for an individual.
yeah.
But when you have a group setting, you can sit there, and it's hard to go around the room and ask each person what their 4 or 5 most important values are and prioritize them. They're all thinking I got to be different than the other guy. I can't, because there's too much. There is a lot of similarity. Uh, but like if you have a younger person, they may say friends is more at the top. If you have a lady, it may be something else. If you have a man, it may be something else. So there could be differences of where their values are. Could be somebody's like a semi workaholic. Their
Mm-hmm.
job might come towards the top. So
Mm-hmm.
you just don't know. But
Right.
when you but everybody wants to think of something a little bit different. So I created and reversed it, and I did a little bit of a way to do that with a group. Um, and, and basically, what it is I ask what values are missing when you're using.
Mm.
So what goes away? What seems to be those things that just kind of disappear? And you get everything. It's not only just values; you get values and virtues that come out. You might say my spirituality is gone. You might hear
Mm.
the trust is gone. My relationship is gone. I'm losing my home. My family doesn't talk to me. So
Yeah.
family value, integrity, honesty. So you may hear a whole lot of things out of a group that is a little bit different um, than doing it by an individual. Because now you'll come up with 25 or 30 items,
Yeah.
not five.
Yeah.
And then you look at the right side of the page, and the right side of the page at the top says, "What values do you have when you're not using?"
Mm-hmm.
And when people start, it's funny because depending on the group, somebody's going to start restating the same things that you already heard. And I say,
Mm-hmm.
well, why don't we just take a look? Can look at that list we just made on the left side. What can we do with that? They say, oh yeah, it's a mirror. We could just move it over
Yeah.
because all those things that we may have been missing, all of a sudden might start coming back to us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the trust. Now, trust may take a while to come back, but it will come. It could come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your relationship with your wife or husband or significant other may take time to get back to a good place, but they can get back there.
Yeah.
And then you ask that big question: is what has to be done to gain those values back? And that's when we come in with the answers: abstinence, sobriety, or recovery. And then you ask one final question: is it worth giving up one thing to get these values back? Or is it worth doing one thing to have all these values go missing?
Mm-hmm.
So, does it accomplish the same thing? Yeah, they're both. Either way you do it is a real eye opener for people when they
Yeah.
realize just what they're putting at stake.
Yeah. I love this. I love this way of just kind of reshaping, focusing your thinking, in a more positive, rational direction. It's just really cool. It's a whole different way, really, for me, in my life to approach problems and things that are going on. Just to understand that, I can control the way that I view things and think about things in a more rational way. It's really liberating.
You know,
So,
it went real fast because
yeah.
when you say that, sometimes there's times when because I'm one of those people that think it's really tough to stop a thought,
Mm,
maybe
yeah,
almost
I do too.
impossible.
Yeah.
Okay, but what we can do with it is redirect it,
Yeah.
and what we can do with it is change it to something else.
Yeah.
So if you can find something to distract yourself from that negative thought,
Mm,
doesn't mean you have to stick within that framework of that thought. I'm talking about something totally outside. Okay,
yeah.
I had something with myself that went on. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going
Mhm.
to say that the news was disturbing,
Mhm.
and I was a little bit put out with it,
Mhm.
not real happy with it, and uh, and and my sister says, "Well, you're going to get a good night's sleep." I said, "I don't know."
Hmm.
Well, by the same time, what I did was I started reframing and started thinking about that we saw the movie West Side Story, the new additional
I
West
still
Side
haven't
Story
seen
last
that.
night.
Yeah.
Okay, now should they have remade the movie? My opinion is no. Did they
Yeah.
do a great job? Yes. I mean, you get used to an old
Yeah.
cast and everything. But the point is that the way I ended up falling asleep was I was thinking of the different scenes in the movie,
Oh, just a
and yeah,
redirecting your thoughts. You think
redirecting
that,
my thought.
yeah, yeah.
So there's your example right there.
Okay. So now, before we get into the topic, and I talked to Arthur about this before we recorded, and we're not going to go into a lot of detail because we don't have a lot of information. But I'm interested. I'm interested in this whole um, issue that's out there. That there's a possibility that there are certain unethical and perhaps criminal people that are taking advantage of and perhaps ripping off people that are struggling with substance abuse issues and seeking help. And recently, the Department of Justice has opened up some cases in Orange County, California, to go after such people. And again, I don't know anything about this. Arthur will look into it a little bit more and we'll talk about it over the coming weeks as we learn more about it. But I'm just going to read directly from the Department of Justice website just to let you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it says the Justice Department announces series of cases to combat addiction treatment kickback schemes in Southern California. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but just to give you an idea of what they're doing. So over the past 10 months, the Department of Justice has filed criminal charges against 10 defendants for kickback schemes at substance abuse treatment facilities in Orange County, California. The defendants in these cases are substance abuse facility owners and patient recruiters who allegedly, among other things, provided kickback payments for the referral of patients to substance abuse treatment facilities, recovery homes, and laboratories. These facility owners allegedly assigned a value to patients depending on the type of insurance the patients had and paid patient recruiters kickbacks for each patient the recruiters referred to their addiction treatment facilities. The recruiters allegedly received recurring payments for each month that the patients continued to receive these supported services from these facilities. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions that we have about that. We don't know a whole lot about it. We don't know a lot about this specific case and what they're focusing in on, what those people did. But Arthur has contacts. He's going to look into it, and I'm going to try to learn a little bit more about it, and maybe we can talk intelligently about it over the coming weeks.
Yeah,
So,
it's just generally speaking, if somebody's calling you to say, "I represent this treatment center," I,
hmm
I might be a little bit more hesitant in talking to them, as if as opposed to you calling a treatment center
yeah,
and directly and talking to an admissions person.
right. I think that would
Yeah,
be different.
yeah, and so just it's like anything else. Like and there's a lot of people today that are getting emails or
hmm
different things that are saying, "I represent this," or "You just had a bill on your Best Buy thing or Amazon for $399,"
yeah.
et cetera, and so on, and people start freaking out. But places do not contact you like that.
No, no,
So
that's right.
so generally speaking, I would be hesitant if somebody's calling you about that, unless you made the initial call directly to a treatment center.
Right. I think that that's probably right too. I agree with that.
And
So
that, and, I,
anyway,
and, I, and we're just going out on a limb right here because it's
yeah, I just think it's interesting. I'm throwing it out there, something to learn a bit more about. So anyway, Arthur, so let's get into it. Let's get into the ABC tools. It's yours. The floor is yours, and I might interrupt you. I might interrupt you with some questions, but can you tell us a little bit about this tool, where it came from, and what it's used for? And I know it's got a lot of different uses.
it's got more than one use. And
Yeah.
generally speaking, this came out of rational motor behavioral therapy, Albert Ellis, and it's been used for many many years. And I know when I first started doing rational recovery groups, we had three. We had actually two main tools that we used. One was the ABC tool, and the second one was called addictive voice recognition technique.
Mhm.
And those are the only really two tools that were used during our
Mhm.
meetings, at least the ones I used during the meetings. And if I could pull up old sheets uh, that I have, I can show you where the ABC tool is actually listed on a handout that has Jack Trempey's picture of the brain,
Mm.
and, and underneath the explanation of addictive voice recognition techniques. So both of those are there. Now, what are the ABCs? The ABCs to me are again twofold. They can I like using them to help diagnose on two points. Well, on one point is if somebody had a lapse or a relapse, it may be a way to basically diagnose what happened,
Hmm.
find out what went on, uh, and why that relapse actually took place. And and when you started now, almost everybody says that the start off is a C, and in a way they're right because you have a consequence, and and once we know what the consequence was I drank.
Right.
Okay, so once you know what that consequence was, then you want to work backwards
Mm.
and start from the A to find out what happened to cause you to drink.
A being the activating event.
A being the activating event. So sometimes it's amazing how many people say when you ask them that question, what was the activating event? What was the trigger? What was the thought that happened or something that happened that created thought that would be a nice idea to have a drink or a good idea to have a drink? It's amazing how many people say, I don't know.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
we have to actually introduce another tool into this because that's where motivational interviewing
Okay.
comes
That's where
into
that comes
play.
in. Okay,
That's where that
interesting.
kind of comes into play. Because sometimes you have to ask questions. Well, something happened. What was it? Where did it come from? Why do you think you had that thought? Yeah, I mean, start asking those open-ended questions, and
To help
eventually,
people understand what that activating event was. Yeah, because you're
right?
right. Like a lot of people, I might be one of those. I don't know.
Yeah, and yet something happened that created that thought. It may be something very innocuous, something that's like hardly you would think is anything, and it might be something really outrageous. But it could be, because we always say that the an activating event could be something that makes you mad, sad, bad, or glad. Oh,
Hmm.
it could be come from anywhere. Anyway, once we establish what that activating event is, then we go to the B. What is your belief about that event?
Mm.
What do you think about that event? What is it that your brain is telling you about it? And that could be I'm unjustly I feel like I've been unjustly uh, approached, or
Right.
that I don't deserve this. Uh, it could be that this is really making me happy. I mean, I am
Mm.
really excited about this. I want to celebrate.
Okay.
I mean, it could be. I
Yeah.
mean, it could, as I said, it could be any number of things. Your belief about, you know, again, unjustly treated. It could come down to all kinds of things, and then your belief about, well, what would alcohol or drugs do to help me either alleviate the negative part of it or to celebrate the good part of it.
Oh,
See what I mean? So you have a belief
yeah.
about that, and it could. So we could take that even a little bit further. That that your belief really draws you into what you use or don't use. Now, once you establish what those beliefs were, and you might ask questions like, did you believe that maybe this time would be different? Did you believe was your belief system that you can control or moderate whatever it is that you're going to go to? And it's amazing how many times, yeah, I thought I could have one or two drinks,
Yeah.
or I thought I could just spend an hour in the casino, or, or.
Mhm.
Um, and then you get to, again, and then I go back to the C's again, because I actually added a C to it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the main C is, let's say you drank. But then I asked another question: what were the consequences from the drinking?
Mm.
Because there's going to be consequences from the main issue, the drinking.
It's almost like that the consequence of drinking is now and becoming an activated event, right? Almost in a way, because now you have to look back at that. Now you have to say, yeah.
Yeah.
What?
So you have to. But you understand why there's two C's now.
Yeah.
Like keep in mind that's not listed anywhere I might be
Right.
the only person that looks at it that way. I don't
Right.
know,
Right.
but I look at it that if we can establish, because we do it, let's be really thorough with it. Because
Hmm.
if we can get the people to start thinking again about just the drinking itself is an event, but what are the consequences from that event that could
Yeah.
really cause damage again?
Yeah.
Because your
Yeah.
initial belief is, I won't have that again. You see what I mean? It'll be different.
Right.
So that's how they jump back and forth.
Hmm.
Now we go to the D,
Right.
dispute. How do we dispute that belief that this time it'll be different? This time I deserve it. This time I can control it. This time I'm not going to hurt anybody or anything. How do we dispute that? And you start after asking yourself questions like, is this belief truthful?
Mm.
Is it a true belief?
Yeah.
Is this, how about using the consequences from the event and saying that if I drank, what makes me think that this time will be different than another time? Using some past experiences to dispute and, and, and figuring out how to change that belief into a different belief because these beliefs become core beliefs. And once you have a core belief, unless you can change it, it'll stick with you.
Right.
So we want to change that. And once we can establish that that belief may not be a truthful belief or a true belief, then we go to the E, an effective new way of thinking or believing.
Hmm.
And once you do that, you kind of went through it. Now, we can diagnose a problem because if people can figure out what the activating events are, then they can recognize the trigger. So we have another tool you can put in there, a trigger log,
A trigger what?
a trigger log, like a
Oh,
like a journal.
okay.
But it's not necessarily journaling. It could be one word or a
Right.
couple words. Passing the liquor store,
Yeah.
going down Elm Street.
Mm.
I mean, it could be any number of things. Uh, but as you recognize them or as you kind of see what these triggers are, you can start making a trigger log. That way, it might help you see that maybe this is a danger place or something else. So the ABCs are very useful in that. Now, they also are very useful in emotional upsets.
Okay.
Okay, my boss yelled at me. I really hate him. That's their consequence.
Hmm.
Okay, what did the boss say to you? What was the activating event that made you start thinking this way? And why do you? And now your belief again. I feel like I've been unjustly treated,
Hmm.
etc. So you can take the ABCs to an emotional upset
Right.
that has nothing to do with alcohol or drugs or actually use. But what can that do to you? It can cause, in a consequence, think that you're really pissed off or you feel really hurt. It could cause stress,
Right.
anxiety,
Right.
and other things that can manifest itself into physical things. So
Right.
when we dispute that, is maybe the boss, maybe not take it so personally, because what we end up doing is taking it personally. I'm going down the street, I'm late, and every red light changes.
Hmm.
It knows me. It knows I'm late,
Right.
and it's going to change. And you start taking it personally. How does a red light know who you are?
Right.
And you forget about the other 50 cars around you that are stopped at the same red light. So
Yeah.
so again, we can use it to diagnose or to find out how to overcome an emotional upset.
And I read on the website about this tool that a good way of doing it in a situation like that is thinking about what it was that you were upset about, and realizing it's a demand. Like, my boss can't talk to me that way. It's a demand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or those lights should not be preventing me from getting late to work or whatever. And then changing that to a preference, like, I would prefer my boss not talk to me that way. I would prefer that the lights not be red or whatever, something like that. And it gives you a different perspective.
Again, is changing the belief about it.
Yeah.
So no matter which way you're using the ABCs, guess what the most important letter in there is? What do you think it
Uh,
is?
oh man, I think it's the B. Am I
Is
wrong?
to, is to be. You're
It's your
right.
belief. It's what you think
Yeah,
about it.
it's your the way you think about it
Mhm.
because your belief leads to everything else.
Absolutely.
So it that
It's
that's
the belief is irrational, right? That's the problem with it.
well,
Is that right?
it's funny because you'll start hearing some really old timers are still using the word rational and irrational. We're kind of getting away from it a little bit.
Okay.
I'm saying helpful or unhelpful
Yeah, because
or
it does
healthy
sound
or
it sounds
unhealthy.
kind of insulting in a way that I'm
Yeah, yeah,
irrational.
yeah. Hey, John, you're just nuts. You're really
Right,
irrational here.
right.
You know. Oh,
Yeah, I could
oh,
see how you could take that personal.
yeah. So we no, so in the meantime, it's less stigmatizing, I think, to use words
Yeah,
like unhelpful beliefs or
right,
unhealthy
right.
beliefs.
Yep,
Yeah,
that makes
because
sense.
this is about self help and
Right,
about what can help you
yeah.
and something. Now, when you take that belief, now I could take that one step further. Now, back when I was doing rational recovery groups, let me first describe this. When I was back in the early '90s, and I was doing rational recovery groups, and you start the meeting off. There was one question you asked: who in the room had a thought of using or used this last week?
Hmm,
And you always get one or two people that raise their
sure.
hand, and that's when you go right into the ABCs. And that's what started the meeting off. And your whole meeting was pretty much about doing an ABC on those individuals.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah. Now, if you take a belief, now let's see about having a good belief. So let me see if I can show you what a belief could be or changing a belief. If I suggested to you and I said, John, the sun will be in the sky tomorrow. I said, it might be cloudy, you may not see it, but
Mhm.
it'll be there. Do you believe that?
I do,
Why?
because my past experience tells me that the sun will always be
Your
there.
experience has told you that. So if I use the same basic scenario and I said, if do you believe that if you drank today, the consequences of that drinking will either be the same or worse than before? Why do you believe that? Do you believe that?
Why do I believe that it could be the same or worse than it was before? Because that's what's happened before.
That's what's happened. Again, same answer, isn't it? Your experience
Yeah.
is telling you that.
Mhm.
So if that's changing a belief system, okay. So give you an example for myself. Uh, you know, I was one of those people that I had two things basically happen to me in my early back when I first cleaned up my act.
Mm.
I woke up one morning and I just said, because of things that have happened and the way things went, I just said, I'm done. I am just done. And I had this overwhelming sense of relief that I don't ever have to use again or do it again. And it was really powerful how that happened. But
Mhm.
even though that happened, and I had already just kind of made my own self, I don't want to call it a pledge, but my own self, within myself, said, you're done. I still checked myself into treatment. And that was like 3 days later.
Yeah.
When I checked myself into treatment, uh, I sat on a little bench outside the treatment center. It was a little cement bench. And I said, if you don't think you're going to be able to abstain, get in your car and go home. If you know that you're done, if you're, again, really understand that you're done, you could walk across the threshold. Well, I walked across. Now, what happened when I walked across? Well, they sat me down and did a little bit of a physical on you, and they did my blood pressure. And my
Yeah.
blood pressure was 240 over 180.
Good God.
Okay. Now, anybody, you see, that's not bad for an atheist. Good God. So
I
anyway, um,
Good God that doesn't exist. The gods.
so I'm going to keep calling you on that, my friend. So anyway, all of a sudden, my belief now about it kicked in.
Yeah.
A whole new belief. Now, the next day, they did an echo on my heart. My heart was enlarged. So now the belief is if you ever do a drug again, you will die.
Mhm.
It'll kill you.
Mhm.
They couldn't understand how I was still walking. After I heard how my blood pressure was, I couldn't understand how I was still walking. Didn't have a stroke, didn't have a heart attack, but boy, I was a walking time bomb for
Wow.
either one.
Wow.
So the belief system that I created was that, again, if I ever did a drug, again, you
Yep.
won't be here.
Right.
So that's how you create a new core belief.
Mhm. And that
That's
that
how I
core
did.
belief really changed your life, saved your
It
life.
just changed it. Again, it gave me a freedom. I never have to do this again, but it also
Mm.
gave me a sense that I can survive quite a while without it.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So, so when you create those new core beliefs, and everybody can create one of those, they just have to really search sometimes for what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
I've
when I describe it that way, what do you think?
um well, the first thing that I thought was which is interesting to me is that some of this could be natural. Like when you had that happen to you, that was before you were even aware of REBT or CBT or even exposed to rational recovery before SMART even existed. And but I probably in retrospect, after you've learned about it, you can see the process that your mind was going through. And like we were talking with Joe Gerstein last week, I think he said like 30% of the people who get into who stop drinking or using drugs or whatever do so on their own without any sort of a program. They might have they might already have this process in place like you had, where it's like, now I know if I do this, I will die. I can't do this,
Right,
and it changes the trajectory that your life takes on from there. So it's like this can happen either naturally through your own brain working, or you could have someone facilitate and help you get there. That's my
right.
thoughts.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So and it's amazing because some of the 30% you see that you hear about, you may not. When I say hear about, like what Joe was describing, they may never come to a group. You may
Yeah.
never actually see them. You
No.
may never actually do it. Now, so when I went into treatment, now that was a 12-step facilitation, and
Oh yeah.
because of my thought process, because of the way I was thinking, I had trouble under. I understood it, but I wasn't buying into it
Right.
because I didn't understand why. When somebody says to me, "If you don't do it this way, you can't do this," and if
Right.
you don't have this group, you can't do this, and
Mm,
if you, it was like being drilled,
right.
and I kept saying, well, "What's other people have to do with this?" Now, the sense of community, by the way, is very important. I think
Sure.
because people like knowing that they're not alone and that there are people that can
But
understand
it's a
what they're going
community
through.
that supports you in your goals and how you want to achieve the sobriety, not
Right,
a community that tells you you must do as we all do.
right, exactly. Which is a big difference,
Yeah, huge
huge
difference.
difference. So I was having trouble buying into that philosophy, and I remember one of the counselors saying to me, "You're intellectualizing,"
Mm,
and which is one of the seven major denials, and which is different than the cognitive distortions.
mm,
But when I looked at her and I said, "What I have is my intellect.
mhm.
That's what I have. I
Yeah.
can't." So
I
so
know it's true. Yeah, you're right. That's how I feel about it too. I got a
yeah,
brain.
yeah. And I
It's
knew I
working
could,
still.
yeah, and I said I could either choose to do this or not choose it. I knew this before I ever heard one word about REBT or CBT. It
Yeah.
just I just knew I always had that choice.
Yeah.
And when you make those, and when you make the right choice, it's like again this freedom.
Mm,
It's like it lifts you. It takes you to a whole different level.
mm,
Now, because of my sense of, or in her mind, of denial. So another little snippet from this
mhm,
experience.
mhm.
Um, when I was ready to leave, and it was like middle of October, so it's coming up on Halloween. And my significant other, my lady, came in and to pick me up. And she, in this particular this counselor went up to her, and she gave her a pair of five and dime earrings, and the earrings were tombstones with a ghost that said R.I.P.
Mm.
And she gave them to her and says, "I want you to have these because he's going to die. He's going to be the first one to relapse, and he's going to die." Okay, that was her go-to.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how dare her? you know, it took me someplace else. And I remember saying to her, I said, and I don't want to use her name, but I said, if I ever had a relapse, if I do that, here's what I promise you. I will not walk back in here. I will crawl back in here.
Mm.
And I said, and I will crawl right up to you and I will kiss your bare feet. And I said, and by the way, I have no intention of ever having to kiss your bare feet. Was the end of that. Now,
Yeah.
I walked, now, then we left. Now, this lady and I are divorced. We have two beautiful kids that came from that marriage, and um, great children. Um, and the only thing I got out of the divorce, other than having the kids still,
Yeah.
I think I still have in a drawer somewhere those earrings. She didn't want them. They were just
Yeah.
cheap things. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, it's a significance to it because it's a way of that they're trying to impress a thought pattern on you.
Mm-hmm.
That if you don't listen to what we say you're going to do, you're going to die.
Right.
And I have never heard a smart facilitator ever say that. Now, what I have said and what I've heard others say is if you continue with that behavior, where do you think your life will be in a year or 5 years? Now, they may come up themselves and say, I may not be here.
Right.
They may
Now,
say,
is
I'm
that
going to be
better for
unemployed.
them? Is that better for them to come up to that conclusion than for someone else to put it in their brain?
Sure. I think so.
Yeah.
Because when they come up with it, now they can see the hypocrisy of saying, I still want to drink. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's, uh, so when they realize it, again, it's recreating what? We go right back to the ABCs, that belief system.
Right.
You see, everything goes right back to recreating the way you look at it, which is your belief about
It's so
it. That's how
powerful.
powerful that tool is.
It really is. The more I think about it, I've got some things that I need to use that for, in fact, and I think, and am I'm hopeful that I would have a breakthrough like that too, where I could say, yeah, this belief is not in my best interest, and it's not true, and I can find a better way of.
Okay, so let me ask you this: your long-term recovery
Yeah.
over 30 years,
Yeah.
what would made you think that you would go back to drinking?
I don't think I will. I don't I now that's an egotistical thing to say, isn't it?
No,
But
not at all.
but
No, 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 no. I don't think it is
yeah,
because I don't think it is. But because your belief about it
yeah,
changed. So when you
right.
said, "I hope I can get there,"
Well,
don't look that you're not there. Maybe look at it that you are there.
that's a good thing. That's yes. This what's so funny, okay, about being sober for all this time, and I do feel like, that it's cemented in my consciousness that, if I drink, I die. If I drink, I can't live. That's not an option for me. But I still have things that come up in life. I still have thoughts and feelings and negative emotions and problems with relationships and things like that. And everything that I have learned as during the recovery process kind of helps me with that. And I'm still learning new ways, and these smart tools kind of help me with that stuff.
Well, there's new ways of looking at it, but you may be doing it without. You see, that's a really great
Yeah, that's
thing about
true.
smart recovery. That if I had somebody that walked into the room, and I've actually had this, and this young man said, I went out and he was staying. His wife and he were separated at the moment. His wife didn't want him to be living there while he was in that early recovery because he had kept drinking and drinking over and over again after making the
Mhm.
promises he wouldn't.
Mhm.
And one night he was staying at his grandmother's house or his mother's house, and he wanted to, and his mom wanted us a milkshake, and you have Sonic over in Kansas City, I'm
We
thinking.
do. Hmm.
Okay, so Sonic is famous for their malts and milkshakes. Well, he went to get his mother a milkshake. Guess what was right next door to the Sonic?
What?
A liquor store.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So
That
he
would.
ended up buying a bottle of alcohol,
Uh,
and he got home. And I'm hoping, because I never asked him. I said, I'm hoping he also remembered the milkshake for mom. But but the biggest part is he bought the bottle. Now
mhm.
he took it and he had it sitting on the kitchen sink. Not the kitchen sink, the bathroom sink. He was in the bathroom. And he was looking at it, and he uncorked it, he unscrewed it, and he's staring at it. And then he took it into the bedroom, put it on the dresser, sat on the edge of the bed, stared at it some more. And I said, well, what was the final result? What happened? He goes, I ended up pouring it out. And I said, well, what was your thought process? What was it you were thinking about so hard that you came to the conclusion it would be a good idea to pour it out? And he said, well, I started thinking about my daughter, who, when daddy gets drunk, he becomes a lycon, a werewolf.
Mm, mm,
And that my wife won't let me back in the house. And that, and he went on and on and on with this thought process. And I said, what tools do you think you were using? He said, I don't know. I said, well, let me tell you what tools you were using. I said, you were using a bit of a cost benefit analysis, a bit of a risk
mhm.
reward
Yeah.
analysis. They're pretty similar. You were using your hierarchy of values, what's important to you. So he was using two or three, and he was also using the ABC tool because his belief is that if I drink this, all these negative things are going to happen. So he was using ABC, cost benefit or risk reward, and hierarchy of values.
Mhm.
Didn't even realize he was doing it.
Right. I can see
So,
that.
okay, so a lot of it is common sense.
Yeah.
You don't have to really know the names of the tools as long as you, in a healthy way, think through them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's good practice to deliberately kind of go through the process sometimes so that if you ever are in a moment where you're disturbed or whatever, that instead of waiting for the brain to kick in, you can kick it in yourself. You can say, okay, I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna grab onto this, and I'm gonna go through this process. This I'm gonna write this stuff down. Sometimes just writing stuff down for me helps out, because sometimes you don't really know you
Well,
know
when you were saying earlier, because I think this is really important. Like when we were talking about the values earlier, hierarchy of
Yeah.
values. And I said the way I do with the group. So last Saturday, when I had this group I was doing at an inpatient facility, um, and I said, "Do you all have?" And I knew they all had paper, and I said, "Did everybody have a pen?" And I said, draw that line down the middle of the page, the back side of the paper."
Mm.
And I said, and put on the left side, values missing when using, and on the right side, values when not using. And so as everybody was yelling out these values, every individual was writing it down on
Right,
their own for
right,
themselves.
right.
Because when you visualize it and you see it, it's a lot different than just hearing it.
Yeah, that's always helped me. And you can go to the website with the best I love the Smart Recovery website, but one of the most useful pages to me is the Toolbox page. And you have the forms here, and I guess they have one form that's just like the standard form for ABC, and then they have like two alternative forms that you can use, one for urges and one for emotions and behavior and
Right.
feelings, right? Yeah. Yeah, and it is helpful to go through, if to think of to have that paper in front of you, and to think about the activating event, what you believe about it, the consequences, and then dispute it so that you can have a more effective way of
Way
viewing
of
things.
believing or thinking.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it.
And
So simple too.
yeah, it's, here you think of a guy, Albert Ellis, brilliant man,
Yeah.
and yet how brilliant is that? When you think about
I
it,
know
again, the common,
it's
yeah, it's like, how about the guy that took a plastic hose, plastic, put it in a circle and stapled it at the end together, and next thing you know is you got a billion hula hoops out there.
right,
Now,
right.
how brilliant is that?
I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
how brilliant is the guy that all of a sudden said, "By the way, anybody want to buy a pet rock?"
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
But,
come on.
sometimes we get stuck, sometimes people get stuck, and it's
There you
nice
go.
to
And
have
when
this.
you get stuck, that's where the tools
Yes,
come in.
this what it's good, and that's what SMART's good for, that's what SMART facilitators are good for, is to help with that. So, I don't know, Mark, do you think that we covered the tool pretty well?
I don't know. What do you think?
I think so. I have a pretty good
So is
understanding
that
of it.
is that your belief that we covered it pretty well?
Yeah, it is. It is. I
Well
really
then,
do. I mean, I
well, if
understand it.
your belief is it, that was it. Guess what?
Yeah, I have a much better understanding of this and how I can use it to help me, and I think that anyone who listens to this will be helped by it, and I'll put links in the show notes for the forums that
It,
you can find in the Smart Toolbox.
right, and it doesn't have to be, again, for anything that deals with drinking or drugging
No,
or anything like
no,
that.
because most of my stuff doesn't anymore.
It could be going to the doctor and getting some news,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and you could take that news and just take yourself
Oh, man.
out there. That's one of the things I'm going through right now, and I'm
Mhm.
thinking, I heard something. What do I do about it? Here's my thought. Now I can tell you what wasn't a thought was using over it.
Right. Right.
That wasn't a thought. That
Mm-mm.
wasn't even in the picture.
Right.
It's like trying to figure out what's the next step. Where do I go?
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's and when you so the tool can be used in many ways.
Right. Yep. It's valuable. So thank you very much, Arthur, for doing this. As I said, we'll put some show notes out there. I hope you have a chance to listen to the episode we did last week. I think it turned out really, really well. And thank you for inviting Joe on. That was a great episode, and then we'll have him on again sometime. And hopefully, we'll have other guests from Smart come on, and we can
We
reach
will
out to
get
some other
those.
people.
I don't know. Are we going to do this? I you know do we take a break next week from Christmas?
Oh, I guess we could. I guess we should take a break next week, and just enjoy time around family and stuff like that, and then we could record the following week.
And see how
Unless
New
you
Year's
want
went. Well, I tell you,
to. I mean, I don't necessarily need a break if you don't.
you know what? If let me, I'm thinking that with the holidays coming up, here's might be a suggestion I can give now
Okay.
to people that if you're worried about holiday and gathering with your friends and family and knowing that usually alcohol, if alcohol is a problem, is going to be present. I said you may want to go into the Smart Recovery website
Mm,
and create a plan for yourself, and you'll find in the toolbox a change of plan worksheet,
okay.
and it'll be like a short-term goal setting.
Okay.
And my suggestion for people would be to go on that website and see if they can't because it has a thing of questions. One of them
Mm-hmm.
is what do you want to change?
Mm-hmm.
One of them is how badly do you want to change this? How confident are you can? Um, why do you want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Who can help you with this? And you can plan that if something's getting a little bit out of hand, you can have an escape route that's part of that plan.
Yeah.
Uh, some kind of way of looking at it. And when you write it all down, just like you were saying before, be something that you can put to
Mm-hmm.
memory.
Very helpful. That's a
Yeah,
good idea. Well, and that's an excellent idea. The change of plan worksheet.
yeah.
So, okay then. Well, you can let me know. I don't necessarily have to have a break next week, but it might be nice. It's totally up to you. I don't do anything really, but hang out with some people one day, and then I come back home again. So whatever.
I mean, you go with them as long as they can stand you.
Yeah, I see my wife. I hang out with my wife's family, and we do our thing, and then I come home. So it's not a.
So
It doesn't take up a lot of time, but anyway, but we
anyway,
can.
as usual, this was fun, my friend.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you very much, and I look forward to more of these episodes coming up and connecting with the people who watch this. And I think this is only going to grow and get better over time.
And we will have other guests come on, and we'll do some research and find out more about those people that are uh, renegade recruiters. I guess is
Yeah,
the
we'll
best
have to
way to
look
put
into
it.
that, see what's going on. It might be that they're all totally innocent. You're always innocent before proven. You're always innocent before proven guilty, right?
Well, I don't know if we're a court of law here.
All right. Thanks, Arthur.
Anyway, but you're right. When you come from two criminal defense lawyers as parents,
Yeah.
and and your mother was a judge, yeah, you kind of believe in that system.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and it's good to have a little bit of skepticism, when you look at things like that.
so,
So
so that's what
anyway,
I say. Alleged.
yeah, allege, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again, Arthur. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.